What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, March 8th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 265. Before we dive into it, we're not recording, and our next episode will be airing the following Monday, but March 9th is a very special day. Happy birthday, happy early birthday to producer Pat. Our gift to you this year is allowing you to continue to absolutely embarrass us and dominate us in the BSC picks.
It is getting depressing for the most part.
Real bad.
It is, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how he does it. I would like to know his actual method. Like, I legitimately would like to know his method. Like, what
he said. He says, and this is straight from the producer Pat's mouth. He waits until right before he does the graphic. He opens up the standings, and then he just randomly picks. That's literally all he does. And for those of you that don't know producer Pat, which is the majority of you out there, trust him. That's the amount of work he does. That's the amount of research he does. As he pulls up NLL.com, looks at the standings, and just goes, "Yeah, we'll pick this one. Yeah, we'll pick that one." He went 7-2 last week when there were 9 games. 7-2. What is going on, man?
We just can't. We can't gain any ground in that.
No, we don't even maintain. We lose ground.
I feel like we come at it with too much opinion of what we actually watch and understand. And I feel like that's where we go wrong, because a lot of these upsets and things just simply don't make sense. And even the Bandits, well, I mean, he also had the Bandits winning the last 3, but still.
He took Philly beating Calgary, and it took a 5-goal run in the fourth quarter to beat Calgary, and he got that.
Yeah.
Like, that's his luck right now.
That's what we're talking about.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So, happy one-day early birthday, producer Pat. You're not the oldest of the group, but you're not the youngest. Congrats on being the unloved middle child. So if you are just like Pat and an unloved middle child, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective. And if you're the oldest or youngest, you can follow us on X, Blue Sky, and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. But only in those certain situations. Like if you're the middle child, you can't be following us on X. Don't forget to follow us on our channels wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article broke on Tuesday. Mine broke on Thursday. There is rumors that producer Pat will be back into writing articles. I'm going to hold him to that. Should be out next Wednesday. And then look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, we got a monster show on today's episode. First time, long time, and we got all 3 teams that we mostly talk about here. We'll start with the Bills. Wednesday, I don't know what Brandon Beane was on. I don't know what he was using. I don't know what he was doing. It seemed like he was a man that was, you and I have talked about this before, like before we got to Italy and before we left for Italy for like 2 weeks. You got that week leading up to leaving for a vacation. So you try to front load all of your work and get it done the week before you go on vacation. So when you come back, it's not all backlogged. You're going to have more work to do when you get back, but you're trying to make it less work for the people that are there. That's what it felt like he was doing on Wednesday, because the moves that were made were unbelievable. The whole team is pretty much different. They released Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morris, Saran Neal, Deontay Hardy. Hines was officially announced that he was being released because that was rumored weeks ago and it was made official on Wednesday. Tre'Davious White is a post-June 1 release. The day before, they traded Ryan Bates to Chicago for a 5th rounder. Wednesday, they extended David Edwards on a 2-year deal. They extended Taylor Rapp on a 3-year deal. They restructured Rasheal Douglas. They moved McGovern from left guard to center and then put Edwards at left guard. Von Miller took a massive pay cut. They brought back Mitch Trubisky as a backup quarterback. They signed Matt Hack to compete with Justin Martin. Not even Justin Martin. I'm even losing my words here. Justin, who is it? Martin who?
Sam.
Who cares? Sam Martin, thank you. All of these moves, Phil, happened. So I guess my question is, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? Sum it up in 3 words or less.
Oh my gosh.
Perfect. Let's move on. Okay, yeah, Phil. Unbelievable day. I don't know
See,
How
was it that he's getting ready for vacation, or was it a Michael Scott where it's finally like deadline day and everybody around the office
just ripping the
pitches in
Band-Aid off?
just to
Yep.
like forge his signature? Like all of these have been sitting there
That's a good one.
ready,
Yep.
just waiting for his signature, and he finally had help around the office, and everybody's like, "All right, we need to get these in. It's almost time. You got to sign these," and everybody pitched in and signed, and he just got them all out in one day.
Yeah, the league office has to definitely verify his signature on all of these. But yeah, it's just an unbelievable day. Now, when you're really looking at all these moves, I don't think very many were surprising. I think Von Miller, the amount of pay cut that he voluntarily took, I mean, he didn't have to do that. Credit to him for actually doing it, but you kind of stunk last year, so you kind of deserve to have your pay cut, if we're being honest. But he didn't have to, so that's good. That gives Buffalo more flexibility. And all these moves were done. I think they still have to make a couple more to truly get under the salary cap, but to make all these moves and get as close to the to cap compliant as they are now without having to restructure Josh Allen, without having to extend a Deion Dawkins or Taron Johnson. Just all the moves he made were unbelievable. And I don't think any of these are truly surprising except one. And I think I'll get into that in a second. But when you're looking at all these, like I said, they're not truly surprising. I think the biggest surprising part of it was it all happened in like a 24-hour span. I think that's the most surprising aspect of all these is that not that they happened, but that he just was like, yeah, I'll sign this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, hand him in, release it. I think that's the biggest surprise of the day.
Yeah, I'm not sure when this was last updated, but Over the Cap has them at $9 million in the red, which
that sounds about what I was hearing.
I would assume it's updated because they were 40-ish, so it seems pretty up to date. So like you said, still some moves to go for sure, but also like you said, nothing really surprising or shocking. I mean, we talked about it a lot last season, and I mean, most of Bills Mafia knew it as well, that when Josh Allen's contract was going to kick in, the core that has been a huge part of this team for a really, really long time was going to have to pretty much get dismantled in order to come under the cap space. And a lot of the longtime favorites that the Buffalo Bills, that have been the Buffalo Bills for a long time, and just the fan favorites, were going to have to likely part ways because the Bills simply can't afford to pay everybody. And it was the time to kind of break it down almost to a rebuild. But anytime you have Josh Allen as QB, you have a chance to win. So this team will head into next year. I mean, there's still plenty to do. You got a draft, you got free agency, and there's trades if you want them. And there's still a ton of roster turnover that's probably going to happen. Like we just mentioned, more cuts to come. But anytime you got Josh Allen, you have a chance to win. But at the same time, this team was going to need to kind of take a step back as far as roster goes in order to get under the cap space and where they needed to be. So it's going to be a bit of a rebuilding year, but I think we all knew that was coming. That's why we constantly said that last year was the year to do it, because now that Josh Allen's contract kicked in, it's going to get a little bit tougher and a little bit more pressure and a lot more work for Brandon Beane to have to do to really try to make this roster a really competitive one with the lack of money he has to move around.
Yeah, I'll try to sum it up really quick, and then that'll be pretty much all I have left on this one, because I said a lot of these moves were expected. The defense is going to be a lot younger. There's going to be a lot more friendly deals for the team side of it. I mean, Poyer and High were long mainstays back there. Tre'Davious White was a long-term mainstay. Saran Neal, if you want to talk about him as well. It was time to kind of flip the switch and move on towards these ones. I think the biggest surprise to me was Mitch Morse, just because, they traded Ryan Bates, who was the backup to Mitch Morse. Now, if Mitch Morse was cut and Ryan Bates was still here, I would assume Ryan Bates is the starting center, but they shipped him out and then they cut Mitch Morse. So I think all of these moves are not just, money off the cap to save them money long term, just to even be cap compliant. But I think they're also football moves. You got to get younger. You got to get quicker. The safeties were too slow last year. Yes, I think their experience back there made up for a lot of their speed deficiencies, but you see the safety market right now. There's so many good players out there. So it's definitely it's more of an emotional change than an actual team change. I think the team will. I think the defense is going to be good regardless because Sean McDermott is a very good defensive-minded head coach and defensive-minded defensive coordinator. But I guess he's not defensive coordinator anymore, but you know what I mean. But I think the last takeaway from this is I love that Brandon Beane has the ability to be more cold-hearted, and he doesn't live in the memories or try to hold on too much into the future where like they were going to move on from Jordan Boyer, but nobody wanted him last year in offseason, so they brought him back in a team-friendly deal. Tre'Davious White, 2 major injuries. Is he even going to be able to play football not just this year, but ever again? Mitch Morris, long-time stay, long-term captain, he got cut. So I think that is one aspect of this that I actually like is Brandon Beane is using more of his football IQ than his heart. So I think out of all these moves happening in one day and a major change and a major culture shift with the Buffalo Bills, but I think Brandon Beane identifying that and being able to move on past these players that help change the culture and change the eyes of the league of the Buffalo Bills, who, I mean, you can't thank this team enough, these players enough for what they were able to do and change the identity of the Buffalo Bills. But I think his eye to, hey, we got to get younger, hey, we got to get cheaper and move on forward. I think I really like that about Brandon Beane and all these moves.
Yeah, and as far as like the emotions go, I really don't think enough credit has been given to, like you just mentioned, the culture around the Buffalo Bills, what these players were able to do. Like, yes, obviously they didn't win the Super Bowl. We would have loved to see it, but the Bills were really, really bad for a really, really long time, and now they've been consistently good, and I think
respected.
Right, exactly. They're shown at the top of the league. They're getting all these primetime games, which you and I are not a fan of, but it's still
not at all
respect to the team, and they're seen as Super Bowl favorites year in and year out. We'll see how this year goes after last year, but still, like just the complete flip of the Bills are a complete joke to you have to take the Bills seriously and they have a good shot to winning the Super Bowl. It's just, like you mentioned, just a quick little like thank you to those players who put a lot out there and really did change the culture of the Bills. Yes, they didn't win a Super Bowl, but this team has taken monster steps forward to be respected in the league again, which they were not for far, far too long. So that is good for them. Like you said, I think it's a big thing that he does have that ability, and this team does need to get younger. I mean, you look at the defense last year with all the injuries that they went through. I think you saw a lot of surprising stars kind of rise up, and they were all very young and, like you said, on team-friendly deals. So it kind of helped in a weird way. Obviously, you wanted to win it all last year, and you would have much rather had a healthy defense and figured it out after last year that these players were good. But it's still good to see them thrown into those really tough roles as young players and just thrive and really see what you have in some of these guys, and that the defense, to me, should be pretty okay as long as Milano comes back healthy. I mean, they were able to really piece it together with a lot of these injuries, and we'll see what they do for the safeties, but for the most part, I think the defense will still be really good, even though a lot of these pieces moving out were on the defense.
Yeah, with Bernard and Milano playing, 3 games together, it's going to be really interesting to see what the linebacker looks like. But that will conclude the Buffalo Bills segment of this one. They do have to be cap compliant, I believe, by March 14th, which is next week. So, and then free agency opens, I believe, on the 15th or 17th. Like I said, I haven't really been keeping up with the off season, and we haven't really been talking about it on this show. Just kind of waiting for free agency to open, and then this day happened, and it was like, yeah, I guess we got to talk about this on the show. So let's move on to the Buffalo Sabres here. There are 2 games that we have to discuss, but I'm a lot less interested in talking about the games than I am the trade. So I guess let's breeze through these games. Sunday, while we were recording, they were up 2-1, and then they blew it 5-2. Peterka and Robinson were the goal scorers. UPL 30 of 33 saves. Shots were 35-19 in favor of the Jets. And then for Wednesday's game versus Toronto, they lost 2-1 in overtime. Olofsson, shocker, trade him why his trade value is as high as it is. He's the only goal scorer. UPL 25 of 27 saves. Shots were 27-25 in favor of Toronto. Real quick, Phil, sum up the 2 games.
Well, to sum up the 2 games, I think they're lacking something in both of them, and I believe it is offense and the ability to score 3 goals or 2. So
yes.
So we'll get into that trade in a moment, but it seems like they could use some offense in both games. And UPL, my goodness, if I don't know, Like, I keep waiting for him to fall and play really poorly. I know the Jets game, there are probably two we would want back, but even that, he's still making monster saves to keep the team in it throughout that. In Toronto, he played ridiculous, and just seeing how calm and poised he is in net. I mean, there's scrambles that are happening and he's staying just really composed, staying big, and I'm waiting for him to fail, and he is not. And if he can continue to just keep playing like this, and this is, like you mentioned, like, how do we know this is the UPL that he is? And I know you're not willing to give it up until maybe later in the next season, but still, to see the consistency that he's playing with on a team that's struggling against top tier teams and offenses, it's impressive. I mean, every time you get to see these games, I mean, sure, there's no offense to watch, but at least you got UPL making incredible saves, making the team look good, and he's been just such an incredible story for this season, and just how he's really come on as strong as he has.
Yeah, I'll try to sum these up really quick. The Winnipeg game, I can't really put it on Luukkonen because he's played so many games in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was his 9th game in a row. It was his 2nd game in 2 nights and 3rd game in 3 or 4 days. So you're going to get tired. And credit to him. I guess credit to the organization. Back-to-back on Thursday when we're recording right now. They're in Nashville playing at 8 o'clock. So they're just teeing off right now. But Comrie's in net, so Luukkonen does get a break here. But I think it comes down to they got tired in the Jets game. They blew that one for the first time after leading after 2 in the last 2 seasons. Going into this game, they were 46-0-5 after leading by 2 in the last 2 seasons. Jets, just the better team in that one. Buffalo needed to win that one, but especially after being up 2-1. But I feel like the team has gotten better with the man advantage. And then you flip forward to the Toronto game, just another grinded out game versus one of the top teams in the league. But Skinner was just very bad in overtime. I don't think you can play him in overtime anymore because defense is just not his thing. It's just he was real bad there. But the biggest problem here is for the season as a whole, and then we can kind of talk about the trade that we're kind of itching ahead here. But I think really they don't get enough loser points, Phil. That point that they get to lose in overtime, I think they're tied with Toronto going into the Thursday night game for wins in regulation. And that's shocking to me because Toronto can just get these games to overtime. Buffalo is either you win in regulation or you get blown out in regulation. They don't get to overtime very often. I think that's another reason on top of the power play stinking.
What are you trying to say? Sorry.
Buffalo and Toronto, they have the same amount of regulation wins for the season.
So you're saying the Maple Leafs are winning in overtime?
They're getting to overtime. Buffalo's not even getting to overtime.
Because the Leafs have 36 wins to compare to the Sabres 29, but they have 8 overtime losses compared to the Sabres 5. So they're also...
Yes, but the 36 wins include overtime.
Right, exactly.
Buffalo...
Yep,
yeah,
I got you.
That's the issue right now is they can't even get the loser points in overtime. If they were, it would be looking better. I still don't think they'd be in the playoffs, but that's another story for another day, Phil.
Look at the Bruins, just for funsies, and the Islanders, very similar style teams. The Islanders have 14 overtime losses, and the Bruins, sitting at second place in the Atlanta, have 15 overtime losses.
That's what I mean. They're not getting those loser points. That's the biggest issue. But that's enough of those 2 games. They're not making the playoffs anyways. Even if they won these 2 games, the odds for them, I think I saw Chad Dominicis from Expected Buffalo. I think he said they need to get 30 of the next 38 points to reach 93 points on the year, and that's the current pace for the finals wild card spot. They're not getting it. Just rule it out. So let's talk about this trade. Sabres traded Casey Middlestad, their best forward right now, to Colorado for another left-handed defenseman, 22 years old, Bowen Byram. He was a first-round pick, 4th overall in 2019, 149 games in the NHL right now. He's got 23 goals, 40 assists, 63 points. Phil, what is your initial thought on Middlestad for Byram right off the top of your head? Because I know originally, I don't think you know this, originally we had the same reaction. I think I've kind of altered a bit since the initial trade went down on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the big thing, I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. I think the issue is we're not looking at this year. Obviously, this is a move down the line. Middlestat, I mean, yes, it's a bummer to probably continue losing these games. And honestly, a trade like this signals to me that the organization has given up on this year because
Agreed.
you just traded away your best forward when you need goal scoring. So, I mean, that's one of the bigger things from this trade for me is that this just signals that they don't think they can make playoffs this season because if you did, you wouldn't be going after. Not saying that they had to be buyers necessarily at the trade deadline, but to give up your best forward and most consistent forward on the team, and I feel like that's just officially the white flag on the season. But as far as just in general, I know I saw a lot of people saying like, well, you have all these prospects. There's not enough room for them. They can just step in. And I think that's just the biggest issue I have with this trade is, yes, you had to pay him. He's an RFA. So as you and I both know and complain about every offseason that nobody likes to offer sheet anybody. So realistically, could you have gotten away without paying him big money? Probably, because no one's going to offer sheet to pay him more because that just doesn't happen in the NHL for whatever reason. But so either way, you had to pay him something. He probably would have had a pretty good contract coming. I don't know how much with his last couple of good seasons he's really earned a big contract, but you would have had to pay him. So this way you get a younger defenseman. Their defense is incredibly young but incredibly strong. My issue is I just don't know if you truly have anybody to step in for him. And I'm not talking this year. I'm talking next year. Like if the team's fully healthy, who are your top six forwards, and are you comfortable going into the season with those top six and thinking that they can get the job done when even with Middlestat playing well, you couldn't get the job done this year? So a little concerned about the offense. I hope some more trades are coming for the left-handed defenseman. Overall, it's not a terrible trade by any means. I'm not like, oh my gosh, that's the worst trade ever. I think it's relatively fair for getting a really impressive young forward who's had some injury history. So I think he has a lot to prove as a young forward, but he went fourth overall for a reason. He's got a lot of talent. You're looking at his upside. You're looking at the young defensive core's upside. So a lot to like about the player you got in return and a lot to miss about Middlestat.
Yeah, for me, originally I was like, why the heck are you trading for another left-handed defenseman? And then the more I look at it, Power can play the right side. Power was playing the right side on Wednesday night as well. So I'm not really all that concerned about left-handed, right-handed matchups.
Sorry to cut you off, but that's why I don't know
Yeah.
about the NHL in general. Like I was kind of mentioning it to you a little bit. Like Dahlin often plays on the right side because he can. Like I know they can, but how much realistically does that weaken them? And I don't know. I'm not saying that they're terrible on the right side. Like, but if they're lefty defensemen and they prefer the left side, like putting them on the right side, how much does that actually hamper their abilities to play at the best, their top level? Like I don't know. I'm serious question. I do not know putting them on their off side. Like how much does that actually hurt their general ability to play? I don't know if it's a lot, a little,
Now, don't hold me to this because I'm not positive I remember this, but it's in the back of my brain, so I'm just pulling it from there. I'm pretty sure that Dahlin played a lot of his offside last year with Samuelson, and last year I think arguably was his best season. And on top of that, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but maybe it's not even true. Maybe I just made it up in my brain. I thought Dahlin said he likes playing on his offside because of what he's able to do with the puck, with his stick on that side of the ice. So I'm not positive that's NHL. True. Right. Yeah, the way you play NHL pretty much is what Dahlin likes to do. But for me, this is more of a wait and see, and I know people hate that, and I was seeing a lot of people, Colorado is going to go win the Stanley Cup now, and Conn Smythe is obviously going to Casey Middlestat because that's what happens when Buffalo trades away players. And credit to him if that happens. He's worked his tail off and got to what he actually is becoming. But I'm more of a let's see what happens. For me, I know the trade deadline is, as we're talking right now, it is like 20 hours away. It's Friday at 4 p.m. So it's 8:15 right now on Thursday night. I hope if it's not at the trade deadline, it's in this offseason. I'm like you. Are any of these prospects ready to step up and be a top 6, top 9 forward? I don't think so. So what I would like Kevin Adams to do is not just, take one of these prospects and insert them right into the lineup. Would I like to see what they're doing down the stretch? Yes. Give Kulik a shot. Give Rosine a shot. Give any of these guys a shot in the lineup the rest of the season. See what they got. But I also, whether it's at the deadline or in the offseason, use a few of these prospects that you've been building the system with. Send them out the door for a proven player who has term left. So, yes, you got Byron here. I think that solidifies it. I think it gives you another piece, and I believe they said right off the bat he's playing with Dahlin. I'll have to check the lineup right now because they just dropped the puck. It's teeing off right now. But I think your top 4, top 6 defensemen are there pending Jokiharju, what happens with him because he is an RFA. There's not very many right-handed defensemen on this team anymore, but I think that's pending what happens with him. But I would like them to take some of these prospects, which we've been saying there's not enough room for them. Even moving Casey Middlestad out the door, there's still not enough room for him. So package a couple of these, package a pick or two, send them out the door, find a Alex Tuck type player who has a lot of term left, who's making cheap money, bring them in, and there's your replacement for Casey Middlestad. You fixed your back end, and there's still more room for these young pieces to step up because you won't have Oposo, you won't have Gergensen, Joseph's out the door, Olofsson's out the door. So there's going to be spots opening on this team, but I still think there's another domino to fall. I don't think all the moves are done yet. I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. I think this is just the first of the domino. And I think because Casey Middlestad had no deal, they couldn't and probably weren't going to sign him to this big type deal. So you kind of got the best of both worlds. You traded some guy that might be playing over his head right now, and you got a really solid piece for him to help out the back end. So overall, I don't hate the deal. I don't love the deal. I'm kind of just in wait and see mode to see what happens next. Because if there's not another domino to fall this deadline or this summer, then I'll be more disappointed in the deal as a whole.
Honestly, I hope there's a lot of dominoes to fall. I hope half of this team goes out the door in the last few hours.
I don't think you're getting that, but there will be changeover.
Yeah, right.
There has to be.
I hope Gergensen's, Oposo, even like you said, Olofsson with that snipe that he had, and I think even the announcers are saying that he's in the doghouse for Buffalo and he's better than that or something. I don't know what they were saying, but hey, go, somebody else can take him. That's fine. I mean, all these pieces that, like you said, are not going to be here next year. Hopefully, even if you get a 7th, I don't care what you get for them, get them off the team and allow, like you just said, some of these prospects, some of these younger players, get them up here, see what they got, and take the next end of the season here is just kind of a trial run for what you might see next year.
So before we dive into our final segment here, talking a little deadline action for the NLL and some Bandits, let's kick it off with our first sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room. Phil, take it away before I take it back and then give it back to you.
Still our first sponsor ever, Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar. A couple of drinks that they currently have on tap from their 30 selections that I personally would recommend are their 1911's Green Cider if you're getting ready for St. Patrick's Day a little bit early, or the Cran Orange Wheat from Great Lakes Brewing. That was my favorite when we went the other day that was tapped out while we were there because it was that popular.
You are a St. Patrick's Day person, which is a bit weird because that's my name. Surprise, that's my real name. Gotcha, guys. But yeah, April 6th, that's coming up pretty quick. That's less than a month away. They will be celebrating, and Tap That Tap Room will be celebrating their first anniversary. What does that mean for those partaking in the festivities, which you can find out more about that on their website and their Facebook pages, so go check that out. Find out what more besides what I'm about to tell you is there. Anniversary gifts to the first 200 people through the door. So I don't know about you guys, but depending on what I'm doing that day, I have to check my schedule. I think I'm free that day, but I could be lining up and being one of the first 200 through the door. I want to see what that gift is. You can also enter to win, quote unquote, beer for a year. So that alone just sounds really appealing. I'm going to enter to get that one. And then there's a lot more there. There's some music being played. There's discounts on appetizers. There's some discounts on drinks. So go check them out April 6th for their first anniversary. This will not be the last time you hear us advertising this. And hopefully I am free that day so we can get in line and try to get some of this merch.
Yeah, hopefully we're, maybe the top 10 of the 200. But they also have Bandits watch parties for home and away games with ticket giveaways during the away games for the next home game. And they also have trivia every Wednesday at 7:30. Most recently, they had a very successful night of Friends trivia. And like PK mentioned just a little bit ago, you can check out their Facebook page and website for all their posted events and what they have on tap and what they got coming up on deck.
So thank you again, Tap That Tap Room, for sponsoring this show and this episode. Let's dive into the Buffalo Bandits. Every time I say I'm done with it, they find a way to pull me back in and make me talk about it. Connor Farrell, 2-year deal. You might be saying, who the heck is that? And I'd be asking you, why the heck are you asking this? Have you been living under a rock for the last 2 days? He is a quote-unquote transition player, but a face-off specialist. Yes, we get to talk face-offs once again. He was drafted in the second round, 2019, by the Riptide, spent that year on the practice squad, then was in San Diego, then was traded to Rochester in this last offseason for 2 later 2023 picks. I believe it was a 5th and a 6th round pick. Don't quote me on that one because at that point they were just listing numbers. I think it was like 61 and 74, and based on my numbers, that's a 5th and a 6th round pick. He was then put on the PUP in November and released in January. Phil, he has yet to take a single NLL rep. He is on his 4th team since being drafted. He had an almost 73 face-off win percentage in college, and he plays for the Chrome in the PLL. In 45 games, he's 5-2-7 with the 57 face-off win percentage. Phil, tell me, why should I care?
First, before I tell you, can I interject with a live update that you're going to be excited about?
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Bowen Byram has scored a goal. So
Woo!
There you go.
They won the deal. They won the trade.
Game.
It's over.
He did get an assist from Darlene, so that would arguably make that they are partners.
Suck it, Casey. You worthless scrub. Get out of here.
But first
Krebs
first
too?
Game, first goal.
Everything's rising up. Everything's coming up PK today. I don't know why it's coming up me, but suck it, Casey.
But it is, yeah. You'll see if Casey can score in his first game. Anyway, about the trade, really upset. I'm trying to take as much emotion out of it as I possibly can. I was a big Carter McKenzie fan, have been since he's been here. He was released because of this.
Check the tapes.
What?
Check the tapes. Yeah. Phil's a Carter McKenzie fan.
Big Carter McKenzie guy, and not thrilled that he is out the door because of this. So I'm trying to take that out of it. For me, it's going to be a huge, exactly what this whole episode's kind of been with the Bills, the Sabres, and now the Bandits. It's going to be a wait and see for me. I really don't want to take too much from this as far as analyzing goes because he has yet to play in a single NLL game. So he's been on multiple teams, hasn't been able to find a way to crack the lineup, and we don't know yet if he's going to immediately be inserted to the Bandits roster, if he's going to take some time, if they're, be healthy scratch, whatever it is. We don't know if he's going to play right away. And even if he does, I don't know if you can really judge his first game ever as an NLL player. Like, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a lot of wait and see with this kind of move. I don't like that they got a Fogo because you and I are quite against it, and this is the exact reason I was against it, because with a roster as loaded as this, in order to make room for a guy like this, you're losing and getting rid of a good player. They've had injuries on the back end this year, and you just got rid of one of your best rotational defensemen, so I don't know. Personally, I don't love it because I just don't agree with having a face-off guy unless it was one of the top, 2, 3, 4 in the entire league, and this guy is yet to crack a team, but to give him the benefit of the doubt, I am going to try to play a wait-and-see game, and if he does get in there, makes an impact, I could still care less about face-off, so whether he wins a bunch or loses a bunch, I don't really care. If he goes out there, wins a couple face-offs, maybe gets a point or two, or plays some really good defense on top of being a face-off guy, then we might have something to talk about. As far as it goes, in my opinion, I just don't agree with having a face-off only guy for the exact reason of now you've lost a good player in Carter McKenzie because you have a roster crunch because of it. So Don't love it, but I am willing to see what he can do for this team.
Dietrich got peer pressured. That's simply what happened here. He got
Teddy Jenner,
he got bullied into this.
Don't like that.
He got bullied. Yeah.
We have a Fogo, and he's
yeah, he got bullied. For me, I'm kind of in the same boat. I agreed with having a faceoff specialist last year in a Max Adler because they had the luxury of doing that. They were 14-4 going into the playoffs. They were just trying to get healthy. That was the issue with the team last year, was health. And they were still winning in spite of the health. They were not winning in spite of not having faceoff guys. They were not winning in spite of having a faceoff guy. Because in the end, it's truly almost a 50-50 shot of if you win the faceoff battle or if you lose the faceoff battle. In the end, there are 1 or 2 possessions in the faceoff dot that truly matter, and if it's a 1 or 2 goal game, and you need to win it right then. So that is when a player like this will come in handy if they can win it in that time. For me, I'm more interested to see if he is more than just a face-off guy. A lot of people are saying, yeah, but they listed him as transition player. Guess what? Max Adler for the last 2 years was listed as a transition player. He was still just a Fogo. So they can put any words they want there.
I don't think
they don't even have some of these.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I want to see if he's more than just a face-off specialist. If they're going to give him some defensive rotation snaps, then sure, maybe it is worth not having McKenzie on the lineup because you're going to have a guy who can take the faceoffs, win him at a 50-55 clip, hopefully, and play defense. That's more valuable than just having a faceoff specialist or more valuable than just having a defensive rotational player. So I'm more of a wait and see to see what he can do. He's a big boy. He's got great flow with this under his helmet. Too bad he's got to wear a helmet and you can't see that stuff waving in the wind. I'm a little jealous because right now, just got a haircut the other day. Real bald. Don't look at the back of my head. That's why I sit in the last row of the season tickets. Nobody can see behind me.
That's why.
And plus, I blind them. That's also why I wear a hat all the time. But that's besides the point. My biggest thing here is you're sitting at 5-6. If you just brought him in to win faceoffs and have him get off the field, I don't agree with this move whatsoever because faceoffs were a very, 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 very minor problem with this team. They haven't been able to play a full 60 is my problem. The one benefit that I will say if you bring in a Connor Farrell and he plays the rest of the season is it takes more responsibility and more wear and tear off of guys like Ian McKay, off of guys like Nick Weiss, off of these other guys so they're not out there on every faceoff trying to get down, hurting the knees, hurting the back, bending over, trying to battle those because it is exhausting battling for a faceoff win and just a faceoff scrum right there. So that is one thing that I think does benefit the Buffalo Bandits is they take that role away from players that truly probably didn't want it. Ian McKay has pretty much said he doesn't want to be taking faceoffs, but he has to do it because he's team first guy. That's my biggest thing here. My one thing here that's going to bug the heck out of me is if he is in the lineup tonight, Friday, versus Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is one of the worst, if not the worst faceoff team in the entire league. What I know is going to happen is if he's in that lineup, he's going to win like 60 to 70% of these faceoffs. Buffalo's going to win by 5. And all we're going to hear about all week is, see, this is what happens when you get a faceoff guy. I'm going to ram my head through the wall because I know that's exactly what's going to happen. And they're not going to give two toots about if the offense looks unbelievable, if the defense is fixed, if the goaltending is unbelievable. As long as Buffalo wins by 5 and he wins 60 to 65% of his faceoffs, who cares about the other aspects of it? They don't. That's what's going to drive me nuts. And I pray to God I don't have to talk about faceoffs ever again, Phil, because I hate it. I hate faceoffs. I'm sorry if you're a Fogo. I'm sorry if this is how you earn a living. I hate it. I hate the position. I hate the spot on the field. I don't want to see another dot in my life.
I mean, credit to the ones who, and this is, I guess, a shot at the other ones, but the top 5 in the league who also do other things other than face off and run off.
That's why they're so stinking valuable.
Right. Win 60 to 70% of the faceoffs and also play incredible defense, score a couple goals here and there, and make an impact on other areas of the field. Those are the kind of players that we love, that we like, would like to have in the Bandits, but at the same time, they're extremely rare, and the one teams that do have them are not giving them up because they're rare. So then you're kind of stuck with the rest of the league, who is just trying to put somebody out there to possibly win, like you said, maybe 50%, maybe 40%, make it a scrum. But I do agree with you that I think it is good for Ian McKay if he does get in these, and like you said, has plays the rest of the year and just really does take faceoffs, and hopefully does more than that. But even if he just does that, it does save a player like Ian McKay just more wear and tear, and then also he might be a little bit fresher on defense, and even the times that he plays offense as well. I mean, he's kind of out there doing literally all three phases of the game right now, playing faceoffs, defense, and offense. So he is pretty much a one-man team by himself, other than goalie, although I'm sure if there was an empty net, he'd stand in front of it, so I'm sure he's got that in him as well. But saving him a little bit, getting him fresher, even just on a game-to-game basis, I think would be good. But like you said, if he truly is just face-offs and runoff, I don't like it, and I think there's more that the team could possibly do to fix themselves, and I don't think that would be the answer.
Yeah, and let's dive into this next one because that's a perfect segue, Phil. Thank you for podcasting with me. Trade deadline is Tuesday. And what does that mean, if anything, for the Buffalo Bandits? And what, if anything, would you like to see the Buffalo Bandits do? Let's play GM for the day. I am looking at a few teams that are either barely still alive fighting for playoff hopes or pretty much done and in the caboose and just trying to move players out for whatever they possibly can and some spare tires. So I had 7 players, but one of them's kind of obsolete now. I'll throw out his name right now. Tim Edwards for Colorado. I've been hot on his tail for a couple weeks now. He's got 1 year left, but he's 4-4-8 on the year, 75 loose balls, 9 cost turnovers, and 58% from the dot. Guess what? He's more than just a Fogo. He also plays defense. So that was one of the reasons why I was interested in him, but they just got a face-off guy, so he's out the door. So these are 6 other names that either have a year left or they're going to be a UFA at the end of this year that I wouldn't mind if Buffalo is looking into. And hint, spoiler alert, none of these guys are forwards because I think forwards are going to be perfectly fine. There's enough depth up there. I think they're good on forward department, so none of these guys are forward. These are all transition to defensive players. 3 of them more for Colorado. Why? Because Colorado's in the dumps. They're done. They're cooked. Their season's done. I don't care if they're 4-8, 4-9, whatever the record is right now. I think they're 4-9. Don't care. They're done. Joe Capito, he's going to be UFA at the end of the year. 9 games played, 1-4-5, 26 loose balls, 3 cost turnovers. Very good. I think he is lost a step, but as a UFA, I think he's worth giving a look at. Josh Sullivan, UFA at the end of the year, 5 games played, 1 assist on the year, 11 loose balls, 1 cost turnover. He hasn't played a ton, hasn't gotten a ton of minutes, but I've always liked his play. And then this one I think is a big shot in the dark. I don't know if he would ever be okay with leaving Colorado, and I don't think ever Colorado would be okay with sending him out the door. And he's probably the most expensive one on this entire list. Robert Hope, captain for Colorado. He's got 1 more year after this. 11 assists on the year, 87 loose balls, 17 cost turnovers, 18 block shots. He is a perfect example of what Buffalo would need on the back end there. Moving forward to Philly, there's 2 players, and one of these guys, we've been doing this show long enough to remember that when he was a free agent after signing a 2-year deal, and I wanted him way back then. Chad Tutton, UFA at the end of the year, 2-8-10, 58 loose balls, 4 cost turnovers, 7 block shots. Then Ryan Wagner, UFA, 8 games played, 3 assists, 29 loose balls, 8 cost turnovers, and 7 block shots. Those are the 2 players from Philly because I think Philly is toast. I think they're 4-6, but I just don't. They're not consistent enough. They give up too many shots on Zach Higgins. And then the last one, I think this is the most realistic player that could be out there for the Buffalo Bandits to go out and try to acquire. And I know Steve Dietrich has been on record and said he wants to get another piece of the defensive end, another veteran stalwart back there. This guy would pretty much lock all the pieces up here. Royce Dilks from Vancouver, 1 year left. After this year, I should say, 2 assists, 56 loose balls, 27 cost turnovers, and 6 block shots. Phil and I, and I'm speaking for you, Phil, because I already know your opinion on this, are huge cost turnover people. We're less loose balls, still think loose balls have its place in this game and are important, but cost turnovers to us are a bigger indication of a true good defenseman, and I guess a different style defenseman that we really like. Dilks, 27 loose balls, 27 cost turnovers. Yes, please, give me more. And I think he would fit in perfectly with this defense.
Yeah, Hope and Dilks on that list for me are definitely the 2 big ones that stand out the most. The others aren't bad pieces, and I don't think they would be. I don't know. I was trying to think like if the depth the Bandits currently have, would they slide in on top of them or over them? It is possible. And like you said, it's just more of, some of them are more depth, some of them are more impact. I think Hope and Dilks would be impact. Cupido, Sullivan, Tutton, Wagner, a little bit more depth. Still solid players that would definitely assist the team and help, but a little bit more depth compared to Hope and Dilks. I think would be massive impact players, especially Dilks in general. Like you said, that 27 caused turnovers, and we saw what he was able to do in this last game against Vancouver. He played really well, and you heard his name quite a bit. And even they were mentioning that Byrne did a lot better when Dilks was not out there because he's quite the defender. So I would absolutely like him. My big question for you, and I guess, yeah, I mean, we'll start with the easy one. Picks-wise, I feel like you don't care about any of them, so you're willing to give up pretty much whatever picks it would take to get these
Not
players.
Rochester's.
Okay.
Not Rochester's.
Okay, so Rochester's first you're keeping.
Yes. Everything else is not tied down.
And then the bigger one for me, players and even some established ones. Are there any ones? So there's two random thoughts I had. One absolutely won't happen, but it was just kind of a random hypothetical that I don't even want to mention because I feel like I'm going to get yelled at quite a bit just bringing it up. But the other one, would you move an established forward for a pick and a better established forward? I guess we'll put it that way.
You're talking about Nanacoke, aren't you?
No, I love Nanaco too much to ever move on. The big one for me, and it's because I still think they are missing something, and this one's also going to be yelled at. This isn't even the one I was talking about, but Chase Fraser, to me, if I could move him and a pick for someone like Ryan Smith of Rochester, which I think you'd probably have a couple picks in there, but I do think the right side, especially with the struggles that Dane Smith is going through, like we mentioned on the last show, is really missing that sniper. They just do not really have that go-to righty right now to put the ball in the back of the net. Like last game, each forward on the right side had a goal, and that's fantastic that you're able to have that kind of balance and spread it out. But on the left side, you had Byrne with 5, and I believe Cloutier with 2 or 3. So you have 8 from 2 players, and if the game is on the line, you know you can go to those guys, and they're likely going to give you a great chance to score. I don't really know if the right side has that right now as far as just someone you can truly go to score. And I think that is, as far as offense goes, I know you just mentioned that you think they're fine. And I do think they're fine. Overall, the offense has looked really, really good all year, but I do think if there was one piece that I would want to add, it would be a right side true goal-scoring threat, because I really don't think they have that this year. It's nicely balanced and spread out, which is fine. It's working. The offense is still really good, even though they've struggled a smidge last couple of games. But would you be willing to move on from a player like Fraser and a couple picks for another established righty forward to try to, I guess, get a more established forward like a Ryan Smith, who is number 2 on his team and playing really well?
I would do a lot to get Ryan Smith here,
That's
but
fair.
I don't think Rochester has any reason to move him.
No, I
He's
didn't have
one of the
another
best young
example
forwards,
of
but
established
yes,
righty
but
on the top of my head,
yes, but if there is a guy like we're going to talk about for him in a second, like a Robert Church,
Right.
He's an established righty that I believe he's going to be a UFA at the end of this year. That you could send Chase Fraser out west with a pick for a Robert Church to get a more a known goal scoring threat on the right side. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I can't see Buffalo messing with the forward group after what they've been able to accomplish the last few years. So that's why I didn't even look in that department. I wouldn't be shocked or really dismayed if something like that came down the line. I just haven't heard or seen any indication that Buffalo is willing or wants to, or even has thought about touching the forward group besides just bringing in more depth pieces like an Emerson Clark or any of those smaller pieces like a Brandon Robinson last year, shipping out a Brad McCulley, bringing in a Christian Watts. Minor pieces like that, more depth pieces. I can't see them touching this forward group because they're still third in the league in scoring. I can only see them really trying to add another veteran piece on the back end to help some of these younger rookies and not put so much on their plate, because who knows if Matt Spanger's back? Who knows if Justin Robinson's back? Bryce Sweeting's done for the year. Is Adam Bomberry close to coming back? All these not older, but all these more veteran known players have had a ton of wear and tear on their body playing extra minutes, like the Steve Perillos, Nick Weiss, Ian McKay's, all that. That's going to wear and tear them on. So if you can add another veteran piece back there that's trustworthy on the back end, I think that just helps everybody.
So this other one I was thinking of, ridiculously hypothetical, will never happen in a million years, especially with when the trade deadline is happening. It's approaching way too quickly to have it, but the thought crept in of simply hypothetical, throwing it out there, of just what the return would look like if you traded Matt Vince.
Let's move on
to a team like Halifax who needs a goalie. Just like what would that return even need to be for one of the greatest goalies of all time, top 5 goalie in the league? Just like completely hypothetical, like you said, not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. He's not going anywhere. The Bandits think they can win. We think they can win this year. They're still an extremely good team. I was just kind of like messing around with it in my head. Like, what would that return? It'd have to be astronomical. Like, it would have to be, I don't know, 3 firsts, 16 players, like your entire team pretty much to even think about shipping it out. I just thought it was a fun little mental exercise.
Yeah, in a very hypothetical world that's in a different universe, in a different Milky Way, sure. Things are happening, and Matt Vince doesn't live half an hour from Buffalo, and he's willing to go to Halifax when he wasn't willing to go there. When Rochester moved there, Phil, you picked the worst possible place to have this hypothetical.
They need a goalie.
I get that, but Rochester turned into Halifax. He didn't want to go to Halifax. That's why he came to Buffalo. So I don't think it will be that pricey just because of his age and because he has not been, quote unquote, the Matt Vince of prior years. Yes, I know a lot of that has been due to the defense, but just based on his numbers. But I do think that it would cost them a lot, and I don't know if they'd be willing to do that because Halifax is one of the older teams in the league with Jameson and Benesh and Hossack's gotten up there and Bell's getting up there as well. So there's a lot of wear and tear on those bodies as well. So I just don't know if they would bring in another piece, even though he has played with a bunch of those players when they were Rochester. But yeah, it's a hypothetical I don't even want to touch.
That's fair. I don't know. It's just, it's not going to happen, obviously. And
those are thoughts you have before you go to sleep that you don't actually speak out loud.
That's fair. Well, where else am I going to put them?
That's fair. That is our podcast. We can say whatever we want. But so before we dive into this preview, I know we're already running late right now, but let's get into our second sponsor, Mr. Sizzles. Phil, let's take care of this one, and then we can dive into the preview for Bandits versus Rush.
Mr. Sizzles, currently just at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York, but they have 2 new locations opening in 2024. They're currently open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a new brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
So, Phil, I think this is our 4th show having them on as a sponsor, so thank you again, Mr. Sizzles, sponsored this episode and this show, but I think we've talked enough about the main bullet points. Let's dive into the actual meal part of this one. And yes, that is a little foreshadowing about what we're going to be talking about here. But not only are they community driven, but they are very family oriented with items on their menu named after family members. And that would be including, Phil, take it away with the first one.
Yeah, first one up, Messy Pressy, after the owners Casey and Chris's oldest daughter, Presley. It is a burger with provolone, cheese curds, gravy, and French fries. Very, I believe, Canadian-esque kind of burger there.
Then we're going to go to the Screaming Mimi 2.0 after Casey's grandmother, Mimi. It is a burger with jalapenos, cream cheese, bacon, and pepper jam. Phil, I'm not exactly sure what pepper jam is, but I'm going to be researching that because if it is some type of jam with peppers, I like peppers. I'm not a big fan of jam, but I'm willing to try it out.
I feel like that's essentially what it is, so you're pretty close.
I'll try it out.
Next up, they have incredible mocktails that are very, very popular there. And the first one up is called A Very Good Drink. I like the name of it, just really explains it. And it is grapefruit, orange cordial, lime, and a sugar salt rim.
So the last drink that we're going to be talking about is called A Drink for Augie. It is after Casey and Chris's youngest child, Augie, who has gone through numerous health issues, surgeries, including surgeries, open heart surgery, brain surgeries. Tough kid. It is beet, pineapple, honey, lemon, and soda. A good combination of a bunch of different ingredients.
And you can check out the rest of their menu on their socials or at mrsizzles.com.
So check them out. I am sure we're going to be down there eventually. Just haven't found the time to go back, but it is one of my favorite places to stop and get a meal, plus one of those delicious milkshakes. But let's dive into the preview now. We're running long, so let's plow through this real quick. Two teams under 500, both teams looking to get back to 500. Buffalo 5-6 on the year. Saskatchewan only playing half their games so far with 7 weeks to go. Been mentioning it multiple times, but they have a tough stretch coming up in this March. A lot of games to go, like I just mentioned, but they're 4-5. Buffalo's coming in third in goals for 12.55 a game. Saskatchewan down at ninth, 11.78, and then goals against. Not good for Buffalo, 12.64, which is 12th in the league, and Saskatchewan's actually a very respectable 8th, 11.56.
Here's the thing, PK. I know you're about to go over a lot of the players, and you've done a lot of work on these players, so I'm not going to just say it doesn't matter. But to me, the Bandits need to just take care of their own business for once and
Agreed.
Really not worry about who the opposition is. They have yet to do what they need to do to win in the last 3 games. They haven't played a full game. They haven't stayed out of the penalty box. They are just not playing Bandits lacrosse. They're not playing smart, and they're not playing well enough as a full team to earn victory. So we're going to go over the players because it does matter, but the Bandits really just need to take care of themselves, play the way that we know they can play like they did earlier in the season when you beat Toronto, when you beat San Diego, and get back to that team. I mean, even just you mentioning that they're under 500 feels pretty gross and a place that we haven't been in a long time. So they really just need to take care of themselves and just play a good, solid, full 60-minute game of lacrosse.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go over some of the top players because the righties for the forwards, it's less about the quality of players. There's one really good quality player up here, but it's more about the depth for the righties. The lefties have the star power. I mean, Robert Church, number 17, he's clear and obvious the main guy and the namesake for this team. But Patrick Dobbs came over from Panther City, not doing much. Nate Kuznetsnikov, never thought I would have to say his name again, but nailed it first try. And then Mike Trillo, monster of a man. If you remember me talking about Dawson Thied, this is pretty much Dawson Thied, like, light. And former Buffalo Bandits draft pick as well, number 29. And then the lefties, if you really want to talk about the monsters over here, Ryan Keenan, he is their captain, number 15, 43 points on the year. Zach Mann's coming over from Toronto, is really having a star year, 20, 25, and 40, coming out of his own, coming out of the shadows of the Rock that had a bunch of talent over there. And then Clark Walter, very solid depth option for the lefties, number 9.
Yeah, 2 things that stand out to me for the forwards. One, I'm very excited if Belter is in the game again to see Triolo and Belter. I hope they really just square off against each other. I would love to see that battle. They're both really big players, and I think it'd be really fun to see those two just square up against each other. Not fight, but simply play defense and offense, what they're doing. And then, like you mentioned, Zach Mans, I think, has had a just monster breakout year from kind of the shadow of Toronto. He was decent there, but not nearly as good as he's been for the Rush, and just his explosion this year has been, I would say, pretty surprising. I don't think anyone really expected him to do this well when he came over. I think he was supposed to be one of the better forwards on this team, but I think he's really taken his game to another level, and he just is a player that you've always had to kind of worry about, but I think he's really become more of a staple on this team, and I think it's really interesting to see what he's been able to do on a new team.
I did see this coming. He had a very good summer. I think he was an MVP over in the summer, but I actually think he's underperforming what he could be doing. But again, I have to remember they've only played 9 games, so he's on pace for a 90-point season. So I guess some of these numbers are a little bit light because, they've played 2 less games than the Buffalo Bandits. But, very good offensive talent. Let's go to the transition in defense right now. Jake Boudreau, 15 points, 74 loose balls, 14 caused turnovers, pretty much does everything. Mike Messenger is going to be their faceoff man. And guess what? 35% from the faceoff dot. Gonna just scream from my seat. Number 8, Bobby Kidd is an underrated defenseman back there. Number 3, 12 caused turnovers, 10 block shots. He has also taken a few faceoffs. He's 19% there. That's what I'm telling you. This is the worst faceoff team in the league. Worse than the Buffalo Bandits. Holden Garlant, he is back from injury. He played his first game in a while last week, I believe it was. Adam Jay's having a very good year. He came over with Zach Mans and then Ryan Barnaby. Number 77, having a very good year as well. They got some good talent on the back end, but I think their real threat is more the work that's a collective. There's not an individual star player back there, but they work very well as a good unit on defense.
Yeah, I like Mike Messenger a lot. Always have, even as a bit of a transition player, like you said there. He got 50 shots on goal. He's got 7, 5 for 12. I mean, not numbers that explode off the page by any means, but something you do have to keep an eye out for, and his 20 caused turnovers do lead the team. So he's one of their more complete transition defensive players with a sparkling, like you mentioned, 35% face-off win. You know that the Bandits are just setting this up to
I know.
Really just, I feel like they can probably win every single face-off if they really want.
I was also wrong. You only had 20 shots on net. My bad.
Oh, okay. 50's a lot different.
Yeah,
than
that was
20.
a misclick.
But,
I thought it was too much as well.
much better shooting percentage if that's the case. He's
very
shooting
true.
at
Very true.
almost 50%. So that's impressive. We'll take it that way. But like you said, a lot of these, as you're kind of going over it, you can see the cause turnovers, which we love across the board. There's not anyone without, one or two. They all have a decent amount of them. So like you said, they play very strong as a collective. This team as a whole, very confusing. Last 2 weeks got absolutely demolished by Halifax and then turned it around and absolutely demolished Colorado. So very kind of hot and cold team right now as far as what they're able to do on defense and offense. What you're looking at, you really don't know what you're going to get from them right now, and the Bandits really just still need to take care of themselves.
So in net, the man that came over from San Diego after being franchised, then, gets traded to Saskatchewan, Frank Scigliano. We call him Scigliano just because of the fun of it. We called him all last year as well. Yes, we know his name is Scigliano, but I don't care. He had a rough start to the year. That explains his decent numbers, pretty good numbers. I think they could be better because he has played much better. He's 4-4, 11.09 goals against and a 78% save percentage. The fun game is to say, which Frankie will you see? Will it be the good Frankie or the bad Frankie? He had a rough start to the year. He had one or two handfuls of games where he was not himself, but when he is on, Saskatchewan Rush is as scary of a team as anybody else. That is why I have them in my 8th spot making the playoffs. And yes, I know that's kind of weird because Buffalo's all the way at 7th, and I had them number 1, so you can only take it with a grain of salt. But which Frankie will we get, Phil?
Yeah, and like I just mentioned, Halifax put up 19, 14 were against Frank, and then Colorado, who has a pretty decent offense, only put up 7. And he had 32 saves. So, like you just mentioned, the back-to-back games, one game he let in 14 and the team got crushed. The other game he let in only 7 against still a pretty good offense, and they won very easily. So, like you mentioned, which one are we going to get? Hopefully the one that allowed 14 and the Bandits can just roll on.
So Phil went over the players, went over all the numbers, went over Buffalo Bandits have a faceoff specialist now. Phil, what is your prediction for the 12th game of the Buffalo Bandits season?
I don't know. The same thing with their goalie is the same thing with every aspect of the Buffalo Bandits. I mean, which offense are you going to get? Which defense are you going to get? Literally, which goalie are we going to get? Because we're not sure who's going to start this game.
It could be 3 different players.
Could be. And it'll be interesting. I really don't know where this is going to go. I don't know. Let's go a 12-10 victory. They got to win. They got to win again.
I'm shocked. Okay. We both have them breaking the streak of allowing less than 13 goals in a game. So, here we go. I have them winning 14-12. I have their offense getting right and their defense improving slightly. I know their defense has been better the last 2 weeks. I know the numbers haven't been really showing it. If there wasn't that goalie goal by Jameson, they would have broken the streak by now. But yeah, 7 straight weeks of 13 or more goals against. That ends tonight in Banditland, I have them 14-12 victory over Saskatchewan and getting back to 500.
I love it.
Yeah, so
That's all I got.
We're already running long. Let's get into the milestones. The fastest milestone minute brought to you by no one yet. I'm still accepting sponsorships on this ad read here. Not ad read, but I can add a read. Whatever. I need somebody. Say I'm trying to talk too quick. That's why I need you to sponsor it, so I'm more professional here. All of these are possible milestones. Can be found on X at Buffalo Sports Co. We post these on the lead up to each game, so I have to post all of these on the lead up to. What am I doing?
I said, are you all right over there?
No, I'm not. I'm tired. It's been a long week, Phil. But all these post up to the lead up to the game because of the Friday game. Once again, thank you for that. I have to post these all in one day. So if you miss one of these, this is gonna be a bad one here. All right, Phil, I already feel it. If you miss one of these, you can listen back and check for them all there. Here we go. Ian McKay is one shot away from 200 for his career. He averages 2.65 a game. Frank Brown is 4 loose balls away from 100 for his career. He averages 2.74 a game. Ian McKay is 1 faceoff away from 500 for his career. He is also 9 faceoff wins away from 200 for his career. Mad Vince, if he plays, and this is the third time I'm reading this one, he is 19 saves away from passing Anthony Cosmo for the most saves in Buffalo Bandits history. And now it is time for the Dane Smith assist watch. He is on pace for 99.82 assists on the year. He needs 5.5 a game to get to 100. He is currently tied for 10th in Buffalo Bandits single-season history with 61 assists. With 1 assist, he will tie Josh Byrne for 9th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 62 set back in 2022. With 3, he will tie John Tavares for 8th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 64 set in 2001. With 4, he will tie himself for 7th. He set back in 2016 with 65. With 5, he will tie Sean Evans for 6th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 66 set back in 2019. With 7, he will tie himself once again for 4th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 68 set back in 2015 and 2018. Yes, he did that twice. And then with 9 more assists, he will tie once again himself for 3rd place in Buffalo Bandits season history, or single Buffalo Bandits season history. God, Phil, I almost made it. With 70 set back in 2019.
There was no Chris Frazier's on this one, though, so that's good.
There wasn't. I was feeling good. Like, I regrouped myself as soon as I started reading. It was like something came over me and it was like, you know how to do this.
It's funny that he has 7, 4, and 3, 4 twice, and all of those are like sad numbers compared to what he can do and what he does do now, and pushing.
Yeah,
for
he's got
100.
first and second in there in the 90s.
Yeah, just crazy that he can
just get a lot of assists. So he's just got to get a lot of assists so I can narrow this down a bit. This is a lot.
Maybe he'll get 9. Really take off.
Dude, just get 9, and then I can just wait until you get closer to the 90 so you get an off week.
Perfect for you.
Okay, those are the milestones. Once again, check out at Buffalo Sports Co. on X. Phil, NLL Outlook. Final one here. Let's wrap this up quick. Vancouver is in Albany Friday at 7 p.m. Calgary in Georgia Friday 7:30. A rare 5 o'clock game on Saturday, Colorado versus Toronto. Albany with their second game of the weekend. In Rochester Saturday at 7 p.m. Las Vegas travels to New York Saturday at 7:30. And then the late game on Saturday at 10 o'clock. Halifax is in San Diego. Very big matchup there. The last game, Sunday at 3 p.m. I will be in the air, headed to Texas to go see Texas John, who was on the show once. Panther City in Philly.
Yeah, sadly, it's depressing almost that we are at the point of not caring nearly as much about the top 4 teams and really, really caring about all the bottom and middle teams and what they're able to do, because the Bandits need to move up in these standings. And I know Halifax and San Diego are still within reach, so I'm not trying to say that you don't really care about those two, but I mean, one of them's going to win, so I don't even know who you want to win in that game. Halifax would be, win would move them up, but San Diego losing, the Bandits have the tiebreaker over them, so it would be slightly better. I don't really know, but for the most part, you're just really looking at this middle of the pack, the bottom of the pack, to try to see if the Bandits can put some breathing room between them and just a playoff spot if they also get a victory.
Yeah, I'm just going to plug my article, Power Rankings Week 15. I wrote a lot about all these teams, so go check that out on BuffaloSportsCollective.com.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Go give it a read because next year it's going to be adjusted because I'm not writing that many words for 15 teams for 21 weeks. God, no, not again. But Phil, long episode. Anything else with this one before we shut it down for a busy work week? And we're recording early Saturday because, once again, I am leaving for the Lone Star State on Sunday.
I am exhausted as well, so we can shut it down.
Yes, so let's end this one on our next show. We'll break down the Rush versus Bandits game. We'll talk about a couple Sabres things, see if any more cuts are made from Buffalo Bills land. And, like I said, we're recording early Saturday, so if things happen Saturday night and Sunday, we just won't have them until the next show. Sorry, my bad. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you again to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. Mine dropped on Thursday. Say it every week. Keep checking them out because we're going to keep writing them until the season's over. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.